Hey, Tatooine Sons family. The Bad Batch Season 2 reached its conclusion last week. And as you'll hear on today's episode, our reaction and thoughts might go against the trend just a bit. We liked it, but our feelings may have been skewed. And let's just say we're blaming the official Star Wars social media accounts for it. Thanks for listening to us and letting us get it off our chest. Be sure to stick around to the very end of the episode for a tease about something big happening in May. This is Tatooine Sons.
It's true. All of it.
What is the name of the Porg on the Millennium Falcon?
Force is strong in my family.
What do you think his name is? It's a big moment.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Maybe Turbis?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Turbis? Pablo, if you're listening to this live stream, that Porg's name is now Turbis. It's a good Star Wars name.
We're not done yet.
These guys recorded an awesome podcast called Tatooine Sons. Everybody was lit. Maybe.
I bet. Yeah, since some of us have been up since 3 a.m. this morning. But we finally got a chance to watch The Bad Batch.
Yeah, it's about time.
That's good. But before we do that, I want to know, okay, initial reaction to our first Harry Potter movie, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Samuel the Hutt, go first.
I mean, it was fine. It was, for lack of a better term, cute, I guess. I mean, it was pretty kiddie if you think about it, but not bad by any means. I'm interested in seeing the rest of the franchise.
I think there's a better word
to
use instead of cute. I said it was a lot of whimsical fun.
Yeah, that's
whimsy.
Whimsy.
I like that word.
That fits that. The whole time it was very whimsical and a lot of magical stuff. It was cool. It was fun. I enjoyed my time. I know that they get more mature as the kids age, which makes sense.
Well, it reminds me, I've heard people describe it. In fact, J.G. Cars, you guys remember J.G., right?
Yeah.
J.G., he was giving me some pointers on watching Harry Potter because he didn't watch it until COVID.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Really?
And so he grew up on Rebels. He grew up not watching that. And so he says it reminds him, the progression of Harry Potter reminds him of how Star Wars Rebels ages with the viewers.
Okay.
Really?
That makes sense.
And so as the characters get older in Harry Potter, the story gets a little bit more complex, gets deeper, gets a little darker.
That's cool.
That kind of thing. Which I'm just going to go on record and say, I feel like Bad Batch has grown up in the last couple of episodes. What are your guys' initial thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, can we just say it? Like, that ending was tough.
Yeah, that last episode was a lot.
Nate and I, unfortunately, were spoiled to heck and back for it.
Well,
just
that
every
happens.
other post. Yeah.
But we'll get into that in just a second. But before we do that, thank you guys for listening to this.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
We
appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, we do. We believe that pop culture is the mythology of this generation, that there's a story that is written on our souls, and that these myths speak to that story. And that is why we talk about all the amazing nerd stuff out there, including things like Star Wars The Bad Batch.
Amen.
And we're excited about that. All right, so let's get the initial reactions. So it's the Sunday after the finale release.
Yep.
We've had a crazy few days. We didn't get a chance to watch it until today. And in reality, we're pretty exhausted over all the stuff that we've had to do over this weekend. But we wanted to take a second to watch it and record this episode with it. So I'm going to start with BB Nate. Give me your rating on a scale of 1 to 10 of the Bad Batch season 2.
So the entire season.
The entire season.
Oh, wow.
I'm strangely critical of this show.
You are critical of this show.
Yeah.
Because I know how great Dave Filoni can do with Star Wars, and I know that he can do great with this show, and he has done great with this show. I just consistently feel like there is a lot of points where I don't know where we're going with this show, and I felt like this season had a lot more of those moments than the first season.
It had more moments of you didn't know where the show was going? Really?
A lot of moments where it was just, we had episodes that just felt off and
Okay.
felt like kind of derailing, like the pod racing episode.
Okay.
And had those moments. And then we would have amazing episodes, like some of the Crosshair ones, and then these.
It does
last
feel like
few
the episodes with Crosshair have more weight to them.
They do,
than
Yeah,
anything
definitely.
else.
and the episodes with Echo and Crosshair had a ton of weight, but in between that, it felt like the Bad Batch just wasn't overall important.
Okay.
At some points,
All
but
right.
I
Almost like
really
how they
Give me a rating then.
Book of Boba Fett.
yeah, I really did enjoy my time.
Scale of
with
1 to
the show.
10.
I'm gonna be an IGN 7.
I was going to say,
Okay.
I thought 7 was coming. What about you, Sam?
Yeah, I think I got to echo a lot of
Echo.
yeah. I got to echo a lot of Nathan's points. I feel like this show, it has really, really great potential for storytelling, and I'm seeing those plot points being brought up here at the end. I mean, you've got the whole kind of clone insurgency showing
Yeah.
up here at the end with Echo and Rex and all of that. You know, that storyline, that's what we've been wanting to see for a while, and it seems like you know, we're finally going to start getting the Bad Batch back together a bit. Not under the best of circumstances, but they're going to all hopefully be under the same roof here.
You think that
pretty soon.
includes Crosshair?
Yeah,
No,
well,
okay.
he's in the facility with
Omega.
So
Then we have to say it that way.
yeah, because her sister said so. Oops,
Yep.
sorry. That I didn't get spoiled on. At least I did not get spoiled on that part. But yeah, I think that this show has so much potential, and it just took a long time to get to that point.
Okay, so number rating 1 to 10.
I would give it. I'd probably give it around a 7.5. It was decent, but if the whole Crosshair storylines or this quarter of the season had been more of season 2, my rating would be.
How many episodes were in season 2?
16?
Yeah, I think it
This
suffered
season
from
could have been half of it, and then
Well,
we could
I
have
get that,
resolved.
but here's
other
the
things.
argument against what you guys are
I
talking
understand.
about. We obviously, you know, the big emotional moment of this season, the finale and everything is the loss, and I'm going to use that word very strategically, the loss of Tech.
Yeah, I noticed looking back, there's a lot of tech-centric episodes or episodes
And we
where
needed those, what you think of are derailed episodes, or
understand,
what
yes.
some people have said are filler episodes, and those types of things. We need those episodes in order to world build and to character build, to build
Yeah.
connections. Specifically, the emotional weight of that final episode happens because Omega is forced to build her relationship with Tech because Echo left
Right.
the Bad Batch.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the things that we saw, especially the Pabu, I think is the name of the episode, the where they go to the island, and,
Right.
and all of that. There's very much tech related relationship stuff going on there. A lot of this second half of this season focused in on Tech with that and the relationship that Omega has with Tech on that. So I understand. I understand where you're coming from, but I'm going to make an argument against it even further in just a second. But I'm going to give you my rating. I'm going to probably give it an 8 because those scenes, there are moments in this that are really powerful. And here's where I back up and I remind you of seasons 1 and 2 of Star Wars Rebels.
Yeah.
I get it.
And
But I need to remind you of the ending of season 2 of Rebels.
but the ending of season 2 of the Bad Batch
Wasn't near as good as season 2 of
okay,
Rebels.
because you don't bring in Darth Vader, you don't have the relationship with Ahsoka, you don't have characters like
Don't have
that in
Maul.
this one.
Yeah,
But
Kanan
but
and Ezra.
the climax, I'm trying to think of the best way to explain it.
It's-
I mean, the coming together, like the climax of the plot lines was relatively equal in this show as it was in Rebels.
The biggest criticisms of Star Wars Rebels, when Star Wars Rebels was releasing every single week, which is the same type of thing that we've experienced with Bad Batch,
Yeah.
is that it was too kiddie, that there were too many episodes that were filler episodes, all of these types of things. Now, we have the advantage because we didn't watch it as it released,
Yeah.
Star Wars Rebels. We binged seasons 1 and 2 on Blu-ray.
Right.
And so we got to, get through the filler episodes or the character building episodes or whatever people want to call those. We got to get through those and get right into the next part of the story. And so it's almost like we watched 2 long multi-episode movies with that. And if you think about stories like, The Last Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, any of those films, there are scenes, there are segments within those films that you have character building moments. You okay over there, BB Nate?
Yeah, I'm good.
You got a sneeze going?
Yeah.
All right. There's character building moments. There's world building moments. There's those moments, half of the stuff on Dagobah in Empire Strikes Back. If that was a series that was 16 episodes long and they went to Dagobah and he was sitting there talking to a Muppet.
Yeah. Good.
We would be sitting there saying that's filler. It doesn't matter. It's too long. All of that kind of stuff. I think that what we see in The Bad Batch season 2 is all of the questions. If you stop and really think about it, the direction of this show, why this show exists, which is the big question you were asking, BB Nate, going into this season. Why do we need this show? I think that was answered in this.
In the last couple minutes of the last episode, it was completely
but those
answered.
couple minutes tie into things that happened all throughout both seasons, but specifically this season's in a large way.
It's just I have struggled this entire series to even start to connect with these characters. I haven't related to any of them, really. I haven't been able to really connect with them. Tech's death, or loss, as you put it, was difficult. It was sad, and really, it was sad. But I didn't even think to start crying like people said that they have. Okay. I didn't even consider that, and I did at Rebels. We both.
Oh yeah,
it's every one of
But
us.
when did you cry in Rebels?
It was season 4.
You had
I understand
4
that.
seasons of relationship,
But I was
you were younger.
I was really, really
And you were
connected to the
spoiled
characters.
on this moment.
That's
too.
true. I was
So-
really connected to the characters. When
Okay,
we
so let's
started
talk about
season 3.
that. Let's talk about spoilers. Because we are, like I mentioned earlier, we're watching this. We watched this on Sunday. It came out last Wednesday.
Yeah.
So we had 4 or 5 days of you cannot be on social media. And I'm just going to go ahead and say this because I'm exhausted. But I'm frustrated not just with fans. I'm frustrated with official accounts.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm frustrated with StarWars.com.
Oh, my word.
I'm frustrated with their social media accounts because it just basically says, we don't care. We live in a world where you interact on social media every single day. I have to interact on social media for my job.
Yeah.
Every single day.
Yeah.
Social media is a part of your world. And when fans spoil this kind of stuff,
It's annoying.
it's annoying and it's frustrating.
But you expect it.
You kind of know fans are going to do that. But when I see the official Star Wars account, I trust it to not do that for a few days. And it was doing that within 24 hours.
Yeah.
on Mando.
On
right?
Mando
Yeah.
and on this.
They did it for this, too?
I got spoiled on Mando. And so anytime, honestly, frankly, Star Wars, I just muted you guys. I stopped watching your stuff.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to get spoiled on this. And not that they're listening to this, but you understand.
I get your frustration.
You understand what I'm saying. So I should be able to trust, and honestly, I should be able to trust major news outlets as well. ScreenRant.com. I should be able to trust you to not spoil this with this kind of stuff within 24 hours. That is frustrating. And I get it. And I know the arguments. I've read the arguments online, even the last couple of days. Well, it's your own fault. If you're on social media and you haven't watched it yet, you run the risk of being spoiled. You're right. But I also know that there should be certain accounts when I see their handle and their logo come up,
worried.
I shouldn't have to worry about what I'm getting ready to
Variety
read.
spoil
All of them are
something?
doing it.
IGN did.
Yeah,
All of
I mean,
them are
that's
doing it.
unacceptable. If I'm scrolling some fan group pages related to Star Wars and I see a picture of Zeb, 2 hours after the Mando drops, okay, that's dumb and it's annoying that you did that, but you're a fan, you're not getting paid.
You're
to do this.
excited to talk about it. Yeah.
Whatever, whatever your intentions are. You come to expect that, but IGN and these major news outlets should be held to a higher standard.
Or they
I
should hold
get it.
themselves to a higher standard.
I mean, I get it. They're trying to get the scoop. They're trying to get the clicks.
but when
sooner
clicks
rather than
become
later.
more important than the fans that are supporting them,
They're going to eventually start losing out.
it's frustrating.
Yeah.
I'm frustrated.
It
with
is
that,
frustrating.
with it, and the reason I bring that up is because I do think that for the two of you, being spoiled on Tech's loss. We'll
Yes.
talk again about that in a second. But on Tech's loss, I think it reduces the emotional impact of
I
that
very
thing.
much agree.
Because for me,
Because the entire show, I was just waiting for it to happen.
I had my hand in front of my mouth. I was freaking out.
Yeah.
I was feeling what Omega was feeling. I was going through that knowing that this is the pivotal, like, climactic moment, and I didn't come into it waiting for it to happen. Like
Nate and I were kind of, I mean, this is a bad way to put it, but I was kind of just hoping it would hurry up so I could be done with it, you know? Because
Because at that point, I don't know what's going to happen after that. Because that, I'd assume would.
So was
have
the
different-
episode better from that moment on for you
Yes.
guys?
Yes.
The final episode?
Yes,
Yes.
because I wasn't sitting there waiting for it.
Yeah.
Did you guys get spoiled on any of the Sid stuff?
No.
No, Sid, the
See, I
Omega
had seen
sister,
people talking about how much they hate Sid. So for me, going into this
You were
episode,
waiting for that.
I was waiting for the Sid stuff.
Yeah,
that happened at
was,
the very end.
That was all new to me. The only thing we got spoiled on was Tech's death.
okay. Well, let's correct that.
Tech's
I'm
loss.
of the opinion that Tech's not gone, but you
Winter
said
Soldier?
Tech's death. Sam, is Tech gone permanently?
I mean, of course, I would be more than happy to see him come back, but there's also a part of me that's like, just stop, bringing characters back. I mean, this would not be the first character that fell in Star Wars that has suddenly come back and is a clone.
It did feel very similar to Winter Soldier, though.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
Winter Soldier, obviously, but I'm talking about Palpatine, too. Like, he went through the exact same thing almost and came back, right? Of course, I love Tech. Of course, it would be awesome to see him come back. I'd probably be like, okay, that's a little overdone at this point, and then move on with my life if that happened. But I kind of hope they stick to their guns with it. I know that's horrible, and I'm sure so many people are upset that I've said that, but that's my opinion. I think some characters need to stay dead. Now, I'm happy that they already did that with Boba Fett, so he's back and we're good. We can
Right.
move on.
So
from
your guy came back, so now we can
we're
kill
good.
off Tech.
We're good.
Okay.
But
I get it.
I mean, but you get my point. Sometimes even knowing Tech's death, I'm kind of like, well, it lessens the impact because there's a pretty good chance he'll probably come back, especially since we didn't see him die. Like
An off-screen
Marvel.
death is not a death in Star Wars.
or
yeah.
Marvel, or really a lot of things. So it kind of lessens the impact, in my opinion.
Okay. What about you, BB Nate? Is Tech gone for good?
I don't know. I mean, whenever Dave Filoni wants you to know that somebody's dead, he makes it known.
Yeah.
He drags on that emotional trauma for like 5 minutes.
Like Kanan.
Yeah, exactly. Like Kanan. And keeps reminding you of it for the next 4 episodes. But we didn't have that in this. We just saw him go. And then Omega was struggling with it for a little bit, and then they got attacked by the Empire, and then Omega's gone. They didn't harp on it for all that long. I mean, it was pretty short. And we saw that the doctor guy, I forget his name. Hemlock. Okay, Hemlock. Had goggles. Whether or not they're Techs.
Oh, I think they are Tech.
I think they are.
That means that they found his body, most likely. And so at that point, the Empire has it.
Yeah, but the Empire lies.
This is
Well,
also
obviously.
true. But also, we thought Echo was dead. He wasn't.
in
That's
season
true.
5 of Clone Wars. I
He
think it
wasn't,
was.
and he
Yeah.
came back in this and has become a pivotal role. And so at this point, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Tech would come back. I wouldn't mind it. It would add some more weight to it, but I feel like Tech can be replaced by Echo right now until he might come back. And if
Yeah.
he doesn't, then we already have somebody there that can fill that gap. So
And I think from a storytelling perspective, they basically function the same way.
they do.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like you have to switch them out. And so this is what this was all about with it. I would, if I were to redesign our the bed bitch shirt, I would put a question mark next to Tech now instead of just leaving it the way that it is. Like, I wouldn't cross through Tech on that shirt like it was crossed off.
Right.
I would be like a question mark, and then I'd add Crosshair to it with a question mark as well.
Yeah.
Because I do think Crosshair is going to come back. Let's talk a little bit about Dr. Hemlock and Tython. Is it Mount Tython?
I think so.
Is that what it's called?
I'm not sure.
It's Mount Tantus on Tython, I think is what I'm confused. Anyway,
It's going to be your bowl.
it does have to be your bowl. So Samuel the Hutt, since Nathan we already had a little bit of a conversation about this, we'll come back to him. do we know the purpose of this series going forward now?
Honestly, not. I'm still.
It's cloning.
It was 100%.
Well, I mean, I know it's cloning. I know
you didn't gather the line at the end that Hemlock said.
Go for it.
The whole him talking to Nala and said, if you don't do what we say, this cloning project, Omega will die, all that stuff. We 100% know what this cloning project
Oh, I mean,
is.
it is.
It's
y'all are
Palpatine.
referring to the Palpatine thing.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's the
well, I
purpose of the
gathered
show.
that that's what that was. I just thought you meant like the purpose of them creating, like, of them making this show.
It's to tell the story
Yes.
of
But-
Palpatine's cloning project that leads to Snoke.
But isn't that
leads
also
to
Mando?
It does. It ties into Mando. It also leads to, and we haven't talked as much about this, and it's not something that has been written in detail yet. But we're going to see Palpatine's son's birth in this series.
In this
Bad
series?
Batch?
Rey's dad. We're going to see that in this series
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, that wouldn't
because the
surprise me.
timeline works.
Yeah.
If it's
with
enough.
it. It helps explain that story, and this is all about cloning.
Yeah.
At this point,
Yeah. It is.
Well, I mean, that's been most of the stuff they've been releasing so far, which is kind of brilliant if you think about it. They took one of the most, I don't know if controversial is the right word, but, one of the lines that was talked about the most after Rise of Skywalker as being one of the most worst lines, I'll say, in the movie is somehow Palpatine returned, because it was such a throwaway excuse.
So now we get the answer to how somehow
So
Palpatine returned.
it's instead of like, okay, yeah, it's a throwaway line, it's like, we're gonna make an entire cinematic or film explanation to that throwaway
series, yeah.
line,
Yep,
know?
absolutely.
Which in some ways, some people might consider it lazy because they didn't know what they want to do, and then they're just going back and retconning it. Other people might think it's brilliant because it's kind of showing all the haters like, look, what they can
Nobody
do with
complained about an entire 7 seasons of the Clone Wars and an entire prequel trilogy that was built off of a throwaway line in A New Hope.
No, absolutely
Your
not.
father and I fought together in the Clone Wars.
that. Right.
That's all we ever heard about that.
Yep.
It was a throwaway line.
I completely agree, and I think this is a brilliant way to handle that line in Rise of Skywalker.
Do you like how they're tying cloning in both Mando and this and telling that story, BB Nate?
I think it's been a very important part of the Star Wars universe for ever since it began, basically. So it's important to tell that story, and it's a huge part of the characters we've come to love, and Rex especially. It's a huge part for him, and we get to learn more about that and the clones kind of leaving the Empire, and there's a lot of important stuff that revolves around cloning, especially now with Palpatine and his other clone bodies, which is weird, and so we get to learn more about how that came to be. And it's not in like my gripes about people saying, well, I wish we had a Snoke backstory book. Well, no, because if people that don't read books wanted a backstory, then they'd have to read the book, and they won't eventually do that, and they won't know what's going on. And then if they use stuff from that book to explain important plot details in Rise of Skywalker, this was after The Last Jedi, then people aren't going to understand what's going on. Now, people that want to watch something and don't read, they're able to get all these explanations not in a book. And so they get to actually learn what's going on without having to spend reading 450 pages of a novel to explain why Palpatine did all that stuff and how he did all that stuff.
And
so,
in some ways, this is more epic.
It is.
if you think about it. Instead of okay, cool, that was a nice book. It's like,
Right.
no, we're gonna make multiple.
Yeah, and all of
shows
you that are
multiple
big
seasons of
readers, we
shows.
apologize for Sam saying that.
No, I
so.
mean, I'm not saying that it's not. It can't be, and
And all you authors that we'd love to have on the show.
I mean, think about the scale, right? You've got a book or multiple seasons of multiple shows dedicated to it.
Well, if you go back
The
and
scale is a lot larger.
I think if you go back and you find our episode after chapter 2 of The Mandalorian,
The second episode.
I think that was a
you
long time
will.
ago.
That was when we were introduced to Dr. Pershing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And the client. and all of those types of things. We had that even more intense, and we were seeing, and it may have been in the first episode. Actually,
We had some
It was the
stuff in the
first
first
episode
episode.
where we started to see. Yeah, we saw Dr. Pershing, and we saw the badge on his shoulder that reminded that was the same badge as what we see on all of the clones in Attack of the Clones and those types of things. We said it on this show all the way back in November 2019, before The Rise of Skywalker came out. We said they're going to retcon the sequel trilogy and fill in all of the gaps in all of our knowledge as to who these people are and what's going on with all of these things. They're going to fill that in, and all of the questions that we walked away from the sequel trilogy with, that as being unanswered, are going to get answered in Mandalorian, and obviously we're seeing the same thing in the Bad Batch. We're going to see that in probably Skeleton Crew. We're going to see that in some of these others that are coming out as well. Just in the same way that all of the questions that we had after the prequel trilogies were answered in the Clone Wars series with it, and that is how you build a world.
Yeah.
With this. So, it's only been like 45 minutes since we finished season 2. So crazy predictions for season 3. Go, Sam.
Oh, wow. You're really throwing me on the spot. Obviously, I think Crosshair is going to turn and rejoin the Bad Batch, although...
Is it a redemption story for Crosshair?
I hope so.
Okay.
But it's going to obviously be a pretty tenuous interaction at the start. Even when they got that distress signal, Hunter was like, it's probably a trap.
Yeah.
Again.
It's a trap.
Right. So I think that's a high likelihood. I think we are going to see a lot more revelations regarding cloning, like you stated. As for any revelations with tech, I don't know. You make a good point, like a good argument for them possibly doing a tease towards the end of the series, but I'm not going to make a judgment call on that yet.
All right. BB Nate, crazy predictions, season 3.
Well, we do get more on cloning. That's for certain, because Omega is on whatever that planet is. Tython? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. She's on that planet with her sister, her big sis, which I cannot believe y'all didn't gather that she was a clone.
I didn't get that until she said it. Until Omega realized it, I didn't realize
it was the episode turning point where it really clicked for me, because they kept bringing Crosshair to a locked cell with her in it. They were going to put him.
I thought she was just in there waiting for him.
That's what I thought.
No, they're putting him in restraints. So why would they need to lock her in there? It just didn't make sense to me. I'm like, oh wait, she's a clone. That makes a lot more sense now. But I think we're going to be learning more about her, learning more about where she came from, how she came. We always thought that Omega was the only one, the only one, and why they need Omega so much. There's something there that we don't know. Maybe somehow she got some midichlorians mixed up in her, and then they're going to use her to be able to get Palpatine's.
It's not going to work, and that's what leads them to Grogu and Mando.
Right, or that. And so we're going to be learning more about that. We're going to, of course, learn more about Crosshair. I don't think we get anything on tech quite yet. I think you wait, because if you bring him back in a season, that's kind of just like, okay, well, why did you do it in the first place, except for emotional
concern. I
I
will tell you this. I don't know that they've confirmed that there's any, more than a third. They haven't
even confirmed season 3.
Right. They haven't even officially confirmed season 3.
Yeah, which they're going to
at Celebration.
Yeah,
it'll happen. But I could see this being a different than like Rebels, and I could see them only doing 3 seasons.
They could.
This feels like the second act in a trilogy.
Yeah,
I ended the way that
story.
It felt The Last Jedi ended. It ended the way that Empire Strikes Back ended. Attack of the Clones ended. It ends with that sort of
tragedy.
The tragedy. It's been dark. It's been a lot of character building and world building, which those films do as well. With it, I think we go into season 3, and I think that we do get all of the answers to cloning that you guys are talking about, and all of those types of things. I do think that this leads to the answers to what happened to the clones, and I think that is it's going to lead to an Echo and Rex and Cody, and the Bad Batch will join in. Clone Force 99 will join in too, in a rebellion against the stormtroopers, the commissions or the conscripted soldiers, and things like that. And it's going to be a big battle with that. And I think that's where we get the explanation as to what happens to the clones. And I don't think it ends well. So,
can we talk about the most overlooked part of these last few episodes, though? We had the cameo of Gregor in this, and nobody talked about it.
Yeah, no, I've seen people talking. I did get spoiled on that
before, though.
Not much, though.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's going to answer that too. I mean, we have to find out how Rex, Wolf, and Gregor end up on
where
the planet that they're at, and this how Ahsoka knows. So maybe we get some Ahsoka in the next season as well.
Or maybe they meet up a little bit later on.
I am your father.
One of the most famous comic book and movie lines of all time comes from the origin story of Spider-Man, when Uncle Ben tries to give him some fatherly advice and says, "With great power comes great responsibility." While we love all of the people over at Star Wars and Lucasfilm who run their social accounts, we ask that maybe they take a step back, think about the power that they have as these official accounts. We have to do it when we see these episodes and these films immediately after release. We understand that the very few thousand followers on our accounts would have a very diminished experience if we just threw out spoilers in order to get engagement. And we learned this from other amazing content creators like Dan Z from Coffee with Kenobi. I don't think that we should need to feel wrong for expecting that from the official Star Wars accounts either. Just something to think about. Thank you so much for listening to the show. I know at the opening I said that we would have a tease for a big announcement. So I can't get into details, but let's just say that the entire weekend of May the 4th is probably the nerdiest weekend of the year, especially this year. We've got, obviously, May the 4th be with you and all of the things that happen, Revenge of the Fifth and everything else in the Star Wars space. It's also Free Comic Book Day, which is a big deal for us in this family. This year, in the past, we've gotten these releases as well, Marvel releases, but this year it's the did I say that out loud? Guardians, that's the right word. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is releasing that weekend. And so let's just say you want to follow our social media accounts and you want to follow the podcast to get more updates in the next couple of weeks as plans come together for probably the nerdiest, geekiest weekend imaginable. I can't wait to share a little bit more with you about that. Make sure you're following the show. You are subscribing to the podcast on whatever podcast app that you're listening to us on. Give us a rating and a review on there as well so that we can get the word out to the galaxy about everything going on with the show. Follow us on our socials and then share the show with the other nerds and geeks in your world. We would definitely appreciate that. As we finish up, again, thank you so much for listening to the show. And
may the Force be with you always.
This party's over.
I like that Wookiee.
Don't get technical with me.
Joy, please.
Yep, yep.